There are no women married to good men who, after getting married, want to have sex, key piece here, for themselves. There is always a hidden agenda. Hello, I'm Karen Seitz, and this is the Happy Wife School. This podcast is for married women to realize that we are responsible for our happiness, that no one and no thing can make us happy, and that our husbands are not the source of our unhappiness. In each episode, I red pill married women to know that we are the problem in our marriages to good men. For the good men, this podcast will wake you up to the realities of your wife's woman ways, to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to her emasculation in a constructive, caring way. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple reminders. My message is meant for common and usual marital issues. My podcast is not intended for abusive, violent, or compulsive behaviors in a marriage that are threatening or dangerous. Also, please take a second to visit my website and learn more about my courses, which offer solutions for married women and good men. You can find the link in the description below. With all that being said, let's get started. Why some good men stop wanting sex with their wives. So the majority of men I speak with are struggling with their wives have disengaged with sex and are withholding sex in the relationship. And every once in a while, I hear from women, either in the comments or talking to women, that it's flipped for them. It's flipped for them that the women want more sex, or the women want sex and their husband doesn't and has pulled away from having sex. So some of the things I hear from some women, I am the opposite. I want sex, but my husband doesn't want sex. I have the higher sex drive than my husband and I want it more than he does. Or an even deeper issue, which we'll touch on a little bit today, an even deeper issue that I hear from some women is he can't have sex due to ED, and I'm the one who has to suffer in the relationship. We're going to touch on that. So the question is, if generally sex is the most important thing to a good man in his marriage to feel loved and respected, why would a good man not want to have sex with his wife? The very simple and straightforward answer is emasculation. So emasculation being the behaviors from us as women in a relationship or marriage with a good man to constantly demean them, weaken them, shame them, and make them feel wrong and bad about who they are. Not only does the day-to-day emasculation, so, being controlling of your husband, constantly being in his lane, acting like his mother, telling him what he should or shouldn't do, that he can never do anything enough or right for you to be happy or fulfilled in the relationship, all the different ways. I have a video, 10 habits that emasculate good men. It's one of my first videos I did a little over a year ago. So you want to go check that out. I get all into 10 prominent ways we emasculate men in marriage. But that day-to-day emasculation wears at a good man to where he will lose emotional attraction to his wife and not want to have sex. We'll get into that a little bit more later in the video. So that's one way emasculation pushes a good man away to not want to have sex with his wife. The other is that sex itself becomes an emasculating event, meaning that in the bedroom, a man is made to feel wrong and inadequate sexually by his wife. And that's where the meat of what we are going to get into today here in just a moment are 5 ways as women we emasculate our husbands to where they don't want to have sex with us. So we're going to get into how do we emasculate our husbands in the bedroom around sex that makes them not want to engage and have sex. That's the main place that we're going today. But before we go there, ladies, We have to get out of our story and our stories that we want sex, we want more sex, that we have the higher sex drive, our husbands don't have a higher sex drive, and we're deprived of sex in our marriages. There are no women married to good men who, after getting married, want to have sex for themselves. There is always a hidden agenda. I'm going to say that again. There are no women married to good men who, after getting married, want to have sex, key piece here, for themselves. There is always a hidden agenda. In the beginning of my relationship with Adam, that's my husband, before we were married, because before we get married as women, we enjoy sex and then we put our walls up because we got what we wanted and we push sex away. But in the beginning of my relationship with Adam, we had sex frequently. I enjoyed sex, but I also used sex as a control mechanism to where I wanted sex more. And my husband has a high sex drive and I wanted sex more. And I was wanting to have, not to be too TMI, but I was wanting to have sex like twice a day. But it wasn't for me. It was a control tactic to have a leash on him. It came from a paranoia in myself of I was scared he'd be attracted to another woman, or he wouldn't want to stay with me, or God forbid he masturbate. And it was a control mechanism. That was my hidden agenda. And for the majority of women who say they have a higher sex drive, the hidden agenda is something linked to control and a control tactic. I want to give an example of one of my students who came through the men's course, and I've heard this a number of times, where there is often a point as good men go through my men's course that they'll share like, my wife is sensing something is afoot. Like she's acting very strange, because what happens for good men through the course is they regain their strength, they regain their confidence, and they begin to stand up for themselves in the face of the emasculation, or they begin to be in a responsible, respectful way as a good man, indifferent to their wives' emasculating behaviors, and they're no longer on the hook of the emasculation in their marriage. And this is very concerning to women. It's very concerning because the control has flipped, and all of a sudden we feel our hooks are no longer in our husbands. We feel we don't have the control over them anymore that we once did. And that's very uncomfortable to us, because that's the whole point of emasculation, is to weaken a man so that we are the ones in control. We have all the power, and we strip a good man of his own power and break him down. So as he starts to rebuild himself through the course, it is very often that they will share with, my wife is acting very strange. She's concerned. She's asking me weird questions. And one gentleman shared with me that he said, my wife's acting very strange. She knows something, I'm changing and something's different. And she was a woman who had stopped wanting sex and wasn't having sex very often with him. And he said, she's initiating sex with me every day. He said, but she's still not engaged and she's checked out. So, she's not there. I know she's not enjoying it, but she's initiating sex with me every day. And I helped him see that's because she feels her hook's not in you anymore. She's trying to get them back in, and she's scared you might leave and that she no longer has the control, and you might be strong enough in yourself. If you don't want to stay in the relationship, she's feeling you might leave. So she's trying to get her hooks in you and get you to stay by having sex with you every day. This is an example. We weaponize sex. We weaponize sex as women by either withholding and depriving a good man of sex, or by having a higher sex drive and constantly wanting sex from them. And it's all a tactic of control. There is always a hidden agenda, and it is almost always linked to some control tactic to keep our husbands on a leash and to own them. That's why as women, we have to get out of our stories that we have the higher sex drive. That ladies, we have to get out of our stories. We have the higher sex drive and we want more sex. No, it is a control tactic. We're not wanting to have a lot of sex for ourselves purely because we enjoy it, we have a hidden agenda. So if you are one of these women, you want to get honest with yourself, not making yourself bad and wrong, but get honest with yourself, because you have to see yourself as the problem. You are the only solution. That's empowering. That allows you to live in camp, take responsibility, and get out of camp victim, blaming your husband. You want to look in the mirror in a constructive, reflective way of, what's my hidden agenda? What's my hidden agenda that I want to have sex more than my husband, or I'm constantly at him for sex and making him wrong, that he doesn't want sex as much as me, or that he's stopped wanting sex, probably in a spectrum. And what's really fascinating to me in this is, as women, a man is just supposed to understand and accept when we don't want to have sex. You know, I've got a headache. I don't feel good. I'm just not there. I'm really stressed. I'm tired. And all the excuses we have when our husband wants sex and we don't. Can you imagine a good man using the excuse, oh, I've got a headache, or I don't feel well, or I'm just not in the mood? A woman can't accept that. God forbid a man say, I'm not interested right now, or I'm not in the mood. As women, then we feel rejected and just throw a temper tantrum and then emasculate our husbands because they don't want to have sex. It is such a double standard where they're just supposed to understand. But if they don't want to have sex or they're not interested, then we make them wrong and bad for that and emasculate them in that way. Again, we use sex as a weapon. So when we want sex, our husbands don't want sex, it becomes another emasculation tactic. And this can be covert in how we're feeling internally, that we try to cover up in our facade and try to be nice. But women, and also the men listening, you need to understand, it doesn't matter, ladies, it doesn't matter what you're presenting on the outside. It is your intention and what is happening internally. In general, I was and can be, because like I say, I'm not perfect. I tend to have a covert method of emasculation. And I used to think if it was happening on the inside, but I wasn't acting it out overtly, that it didn't count. You're not fooling anyone. It doesn't matter if it's just happening internally that you're emasculating your husband, whether it be around sex or another avenue. He still feels it. It still has the exact same effect if you are, pardon my language, an outward bitch to him constantly. And men, you need to know when you're feeling confused of, she seems nice, she's got a smile on her face, but why do I feel so bad? Or why do I feel like I'm in trouble? Or why do I feel so insecure or confused? Then you can know your wife is more covert in her emasculation. So when we want sex more than our husbands, again, there's a hidden agenda involved. It becomes another emasculation tactic that is overt or covert of what's wrong with you, that you don't want sex, or what's wrong with you that you don't want sex as much as me. You're a man. And that was my experience in the beginning of my relationship with Adam before we were married, was you should always want sex when I want sex. You're a man. What's wrong with you that you don't? And then I would become paranoid. Were you watching porn? What are you doing? You don't want me. You'd rather watch porn, or you'd rather, maybe you want to be with another woman. And all of that was a tactic to break him down and make him feel wrong and bad about himself as a man. And that's what we do to men as women when we're saying we have a higher sex drive, or we want sex more, or our husbands stop wanting sex with us. It's because of emasculation, and then just simply becomes another tactic and tool to make men feel bad and wrong, make our husbands feel bad and wrong about who they are as a man. So again, we have the control and we have the power in the relationship. Where I want to go next are 5 ways that women emasculate their husbands to the point of not wanting to have sex with them. Another way to look at this is 5 reasons your husband doesn't want sex anymore. In all of these, the undercurrent and the reason is emasculation. To make a man, our husband, stop feeling like a man and not feeling good about themselves. And that can happen in the day-to-day, like I talked about earlier, the day-to-day emasculation, just of how we treat them in general, making them wrong and bad, making them feel that no matter what they do, it's never enough, not showing appreciation or affection, just the day-to-day emasculation that degrades a man's sense of himself as a man and makes him feel bad about himself, but also making sex an emasculating event, which is more of what we are going to talk about. So getting into the 5 ways we emasculate men so they don't want sex with us. Number 1, making them feel incompetent in the bedroom. Number 1, making a good man feel incompetent in the bedroom. And again, this can be covert or overt if it's what you're feeling on the inside and projecting out just through how you're feeling. It has the same effect as if you're being verbal and vocalizing the ways you find your husband incompetent and inadequate in the bedroom. And this is when you might, in more ways than one, make your husband believe that he doesn't know what you like or know your body well enough to please you, that he doesn't know what it takes to make you aroused and excited, and putting the responsibility on him that he has to do all of these things to turn you on and make you satisfied in the bedroom. And when he can't, and you make that known, again, either covertly or overtly, it makes him feel bad about himself and makes him feel inadequate. So then he will pull away and withdraw from sex. Again, we are the problem in this. And we have to remember, ladies, that, and I've talked about this before, that it is our responsibility to know our bodies, to know what we like, to know what we don't like. Our responsibility to feel the way we want to feel in the bedroom. And communicate that with our husbands and give ourselves the experience that we want. The burden does not fall on your husband. He is not a mind reader. The burden does not fall on your husband to somehow magically know your body and what you like or don't like and make you feel satisfied in the bedroom. That is our responsibility. To know ourselves and lovingly guide our husbands and give ourselves the experience that we enjoy and is pleasurable to us. The burden does not fall on them. The second way we emasculate our husbands to the point of them no longer wanting sex with us or not wanting it very often. Number 2, judging him for his appearance or his size or his weight and how it affects your ability to be intimate with him. That's number 2. Again, judging him for his appearance, his weight, his size, and how it affects your ability to be intimate with him. And again, really important, I want to keep reiterating this. This can either be overt or covert. If you're repulsed by your husband's looks or appearance, but you try not to wear it on the outside, he still feels it. He can feel and sense the judgment. And we all know that experience, just as humans, men and women in general. We can feel, even when someone's not overtly judging us, we can feel it. We sense it. So we make them insecure by judging them for their appearance. Again, they withdraw from sex and don't want to have sex. It's another form of emasculation. Number 3, of how as women we emasculate our husbands to the point of them not wanting to have sex with us. He has been emasculated to the point of having erectile dysfunction. Number 3, he has been emasculated by his wife to the point of having ED. I'm going to get a little bit into this. We're really twisted in this as women, and we're looking at ED. This is important, not from a medical, physical experience, but from an emotional, psychological experience. I believe it was the Mayo Clinic that the number one reason for ED in men is psychological stress, usually from the marriage or relationship. It is a psychological, emotional issue that stems from his wife emasculating him. And with ED, a man becomes uncomfortable and embarrassed because as women, we will make them wrong and bad for having ED. And this is where we're really, really twisted. That we will emasculate our husbands to the point of ED so we don't have to have sex. Then once they get to that point, then we say we want it and that we're neglected and we're on the short end of the stick because our husbands have ED. Then make their ED all about us and how it's affecting us with no sensitivity, empathy for what our husbands are going through. If your husband has ED, he's the one suffering. I don't have adequate words and I don't have the firsthand experience in being a woman, but how devastating and crushing that is to a man. That is his manhood and sense of being a man. So we will emasculate them to that point and then make them wrong and bad that that's what's happening and make it all about us and how we're suffering because we can't have sex. So I have an example of this from a former student who suffered with ED, and his wife emasculated him for having ED, made him feel bad and wrong, and how she wanted to have sex and why wasn't he doing anything about it? You need to get it corrected. You're not even trying. So he gets it corrected. Testosterone treatment worked for him as well as some therapy, and he overcame it. And then she didn't want to have sex and pulled the trauma card. All of a sudden, she realized she had trauma from earlier in her life and that now she needed to work through that and she couldn't have sex. Nothing makes us happy. And we always want what we don't have. So that's a really, really good example of how there's always a hidden agenda. And once we get married, and again, in the context of being married to a good man, we stop wanting sex. And if we're still having it or we want a lot of it, there's a hidden agenda. And I think that is a perfect example to highlight that. And there's 2 types of ED where a man either can't get an erection or he struggles with premature ejaculation. And we will emasculate them with the premature ejaculation and making fun of them because they can't last long, or making them feel bad and wrong because they can't get an erection when we're behind it in the emasculation. It's a very twisted web we weave. The third way that women emasculate their husbands to the point of their husbands not wanting sex anymore. Number 4, women are insensitive to a man's insecurities in the bedroom. So we dismiss their insecurities and think they're too sensitive. And that can happen by either comparing our husbands to past lovers or past boyfriends and how they could please us and knew. And it's kind of astounding to me that as women, we would even vocalize that in our marriages to our husband and talk about our past experiences or past lovers or boyfriends and how that makes a man feel inadequate and very insecure in the bedroom. I have another example of this. I spoke with a woman a few months ago where she talked about, my husband holds on to this hurt because one time we were having sex and I just said, oh, that feels really good. That's where my massage therapist massages. And if you keep doing that, it feels so good. And her massage therapist was a male. And she couldn't understand why her husband and belittled him because he was hurt by that and insecure by that. Can you imagine the tables turned and how a woman would react if her husband said something like that while they were having sex? Or our husbands talked about their past girlfriends and past experiences with sex? We're insensitive to their insecurities and say things and do things that add to their insecurities in the bedroom, and then they withdraw and don't want to have sex or to have it as often. And number 5 of how as women we emasculate our husbands to the point of them not wanting sex with us. Number 5, he has lost his emotional attraction to his wife. Number 5, he has lost his emotional attraction to his wife. For a good man, when his wife is emasculating him on a day-to-day basis, in big ways and little ways, with the criticism, being controlling, mothering him, making him feel bad and wrong, her never being happy, nothing he does is ever enough, neglecting him, demeaning him, not appreciating him, showing him affection, that creates a disinterest in sex. A good man in general, we're not talking about college days or before marriage, but in general, a good man can't sleep with a lot of different kind of women and just sleep with a woman to have sex. There has to be at least a little bit of an emotional connection there, because a good man is not a bad boy. A bad boy can have sex with all different kinds of women because he just wants a lot of sex with a lot of different women, and he wants to conquer women. That's not in a good man's makeup. He needs to have an emotional connection. So when he's being emasculated on a day-to-day basis, out of the bedroom, just in the day-to-day interactions with his wife and how she treats him, that kills an emotional attraction to then he's disinterested in sex. It's why I hear from good men where sadly their wives have said something along the lines that when they're not interested in sex, when a woman says something along the lines of just, I don't care if you go outside the marriage, you can go get it somewhere else. I don't want to have sex. I'm not interested in it. So the flip of what we're talking about today, but this is a good example. I've had many good men tell me that. She tells me to just go outside the marriage, but I can't do that because I love her and I want to have sex with my wife. It's because they don't want to just go have sex to have sex, because they want that emotional connection there and they want to have sex with their wives. But in what we're talking about today, if he isn't wanting to have sex, a big reason to that in a form of emasculation is he has lost the emotional attraction because of the emasculation. So those are the 5 ways that a woman emasculates her husband to the point of him no longer wanting sex or not wanting sex very frequently with her. I have a side note that I would like to talk about. And this stems from many women say, and even men believe this is the case, and this is a note for good men. And contrary to other opinions, that often women will think it's because he watches porn that he no longer wants to have sex with me. And in this, I want to set this up correctly. I'm not talking about addiction. I'm not talking about compulsive pornography use. I'm talking about just normal, responsible use of pornography, just to make things clear. Porn is not the issue. Porn is not the reason your husband has stopped wanting sex. If he's a good man and there's not an addiction or a compulsion involved, you want to know, for good men, porn is just like shopping for us as women. It is an outlet and a release. And even if a good man watches porn from time to time, he still loves, and again, if he hasn't been emasculated to the point of not wanting sex, a good man still loves and wants to be with their wives. Pornography isn't cheating or a betrayal to their wives and not wanting their wives. There's an incredible Redbook article that was written anonymously by a married man about just like normal, not compulsive or addictive pornography use. He wrote the article for wives, and helping them understand this is not a personal attack or a betrayal to you, and here's why. And I'm going to find that article and post it because it's really, really, really good. So here's an analogy I like to give. And I've done this for many years now in my teaching, that as humans, just our human nature, that sometimes we like to escape from day-to-day life, or escape from the emotional challenges we have, escape from our emotions, and have an outlet and a release, and trying to fill that void and emptiness that we feel as humans. And we have different ways that we do this, and some are more socially acceptable than others, but they all are the same thing we're doing. So like I said, for women, we might use shopping or spending money to escape and have an outlet from day-to-day life. And men can too, buying things and toys and gadgets and things we like. For women, usually it's clothes, makeup, skincare. So that's one outlet or escape we can have as humans. It might be binge watching Netflix and checking out or zoning out with TV. It could be emotional eating, eating Ben and Jerry's. I've certainly struggled with that in my life and in my journey. For women, it could be talking and venting to girlfriends, as an escape. Or for men, it might be, having a couple drinks after work. And then also for men and some women, it could be porn. And we want to make this really, really wrong and bad because it's not as socially acceptable as this, and it's stigmatized in our society. But how I see it, in a healthy, responsible way, it's just the same as any other escape or release that we have as humans in life. So I just wanted to touch on that because there's a lot of other opinions out there that I thought that was important to touch on. So getting into the solution. So I'm going to talk to the ladies first. So women, if your husband has stopped wanting sex or doesn't want sex very often, you have to look at yourself. And not to beat yourself up, not to make yourself bad and wrong, but so you're empowered to be the solution. One of the ways that a man feels loved and respected in the relationship that is very important to him is sex. So if your husband has stopped wanting sex or doesn't want it very often, it's you. You're the problem. It's just another way to look at yourself and see, how are you showing up in the marriage? How are you treating your husband in and outside of the bedroom that he's been emasculated to the point of not wanting sex? And in that, two things. You have to stop emasculating your husband. And how we do that is looking at ourselves and learning to have a healthy relationship with ourselves. The emasculation is a reflection of how you feel about yourself. When you feel bad about yourself, you don't like yourself, then that's why you project onto your husband and make him feel bad and wrong and weaken him, because it's how bad and wrong you feel in yourself and how weak you feel in yourself. So you have to build a healthy relationship with yourself and create the self-awareness to catch yourself in your emasculating behaviors and stop emasculating your husband. The second is learning to have sex for yourself and enjoy sex for yourself. And let go of the control and the weaponization and hidden agenda that you have with wanting sex from your husband, if that's the category you fall into as a woman. I would say, based on my experience and people I've talked to, that's rarer, but it does happen, which is why I'm talking about this today. So you have to learn to have sex for yourself and let go of the hidden agenda, let go of the control, and let go of the weaponization of sex. Men, you have to know first that you, and not in a way of making you a victim and absolving you of responsibility, but actually so you can move forward and be your solution. You have to know you're not the problem. If you are a regular, normal, good man who enjoys sex and that's been important to you in the marriage and you've stopped wanting it and you're struggling with the things and the woman ways I talk about, you're not the problem. Your wife has emasculated you to the point of not wanting sex or losing interest in sex. How you take responsibility so you are not a victim is you have to look at, how do I give my power away to my wife, that she has this kind of control over me, so you can resolve that in yourself and take responsibility for what is it about me, so that again, you're empowered to be the solution. And then another important aspect is rebuilding your confidence, rebuilding your inner strength, and doing things for yourself that you enjoy so that you're filling your tank, so you feel better about yourself as a man and no longer emasculated. And both of those solutions for women and for men, ladies, that's building a healthy relationship with yourself and learning to be happy in yourself, which is the solution to stopping the emasculation. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you haven't, go check me out on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can find the links in the description below to connect with me there. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility and change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you soon.